Greetings. So, episode 2 of My Weird Life. Me living out in the woods, the beginning, I have a little husky, and we'll call this episode The Search for Fire. Yeah, so I had the little yurt built. I had a place to live, had my mattress there, my dog had his little kennel, and actually it was a full-size kennel, to be honest. But I didn't really have any dry firewood. Retrospect, I probably should have moved out there in the later spring, and that way I could have stored up some wood and it would have been kind of nice. But I didn't. At first, all I had was my Alice pack, a backpack, no chainsaw, no nothing, handsaw. And I'm like, I need wood. What little wood I could find around the forest at the time. Well, this is a Washington winter, so gray and rainy on a regular basis. So even if it is a nice day, it's still wet. So I needed nature's answer for this. There's two versions of this. One was all the way at the beach. The other one was like nature's naturally gasoline-soaked wood, which is called cedar. Now, what's funny about cedar on the West Coast is like it's really valuable. It's good for post. It's good for making cedar shakes. If it's old tree stumps, they cut them up, make shake bolts. And so they're like, oh, you're not supposed to harvest cedar, blah, blah, blah. Well, I was walking out there in the middle of nowhere. I live next to the 5,000 block, this big, huge area the DNR had, where kind of swamp, kind of forest swamp, here and there, little water running through everywhere. 3 roads. And I was walking on the 3rd road, which is long been since blocked off. I'm walking out there and I'm looking around and I end up seeing this. I keep on walking for whatever reason, me and the dog. And I see this patch of forest that for some reason all these other areas have been cut. You got this kind of forest swamp thing over here. And part of the reason some of that area is swamp, and when they blocked it off, they tore out all the culverts. The culverts were actually slowing down the water, which caused more swamp, which caused more grassland. Once those culverts were tore out, a lot of that grassland now turned into forest. Pretty cool if you think about it. But back then I was like, need fire, need heat. And I find this old area where the big stumps were from the original cut in this forest. It was actually still a big, tall forest. It was a chunk of land someone probably owned it. And middle of nowhere. And I'm walking around these old tree stumps. And I find leftover parts from shake bolts. Not shake bolt wood quality stuff and stuff, but like the things they just cut off right there. And I'm like, this is cedar. This will burn. And I just started loading my Alice pack. And then basically at that point, I was like, cool. Not going to freeze tonight. It's going to be nice. Had myself a 40 or two ready to go at home. Had my chair. Dog was in this kennel. Burning my rich man fire. And I started realizing, okay, I don't want to walk all the way around this way. So I found this kind of trail to get back over there. You got to kind of walk over this or that to avoid your foot hitting the swamp. You don't have wet feet. Little creeks that kind of go through. I remember one was called It's a Creek, and then Up the Creek. There's 2 of them, which actually they produced enough water to where you could actually get power off of them a good portion of the year. You could have a little mini hydro system during the winter and the fall and the spring, and then during the rest of the year, you'd have a solar system easily. But I didn't own that land, so there's nothing I could really do with it. Plus, the technology back in the early 2000s not nearly as good. I mean, this was just right after the first apocalypse. You guys remember Y2K? World was going to end. A lot of good survival gear came out. Had a little solar radio and stuff back then. But, I did that a number of times. And then I got in this quest, the search for fire. Eventually, I had to get a chainsaw. And this is kind of where the Viking death truck also showed up in my life. I had a green saw in the beginning. And it was one of those gigs where it was a Poland. They suck. I remember when this redneck guy shows, I'm out at the North Maintenance Alder, the 5,000. No, this is not the 5,000, but the North Maintenance Alder, which is out near these S-curves. They were before you get to the West Twin area, which, by the way, West Twin is a good place for smelting. I don't know if it still is. It used to be this huge dock thing out there made out of dirt they called the Mole. I used to fish off of it. That's a whole different line of stories. But I'm out there. Most of the wood, good wood, has already been taken from this clear cut. And this is a few months, just a month or so after, I just moved out there, and it was the search for fire for like whatever I could scrounge. And I'm trying to get this damn saw tuned. And this redneck comes up and he's like, let me see if I can get that tuned. He's like, well, you need to get a real saw. You need to get a still or a Husqvarna. Get a still. And I'm like, I'm going to go with what this guy's saying because I had so much trouble with that saw. And what I had for a pickup truck back then, the buddy's dad, who had the land that I was renting, he was also kind of a welder, slash junk guy. He had all sorts of things. He had this 73 Dodge Custom 100. It was an old, I think, California DOT rig originally. He was step side, and it had a tape deck and one working speaker. My buddy made this, the punk rock tape, as I called it. It was a collection of like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys. I think there might have been a couple other things on there. And I'd get up and I'd be like, fuck yeah, gotta go get some firewood. I put my little Husky there in the passenger seat. And people are like, why'd you call it the Viking Death Truck? Okay, this truck, and by the way, I've never been hugely mechanically minded. I've never been that guy. This truck, it over-revved when it was warming up, way over-revved. And it had crappy brakes too. They had brakes that worked, but they were like kind of grabby. Once again, just one of those cases where, hey, if you have your kids in high school, make sure they learn some auto mechanics, even though nobody cares about that anymore. It might come in handy. At least it would have come in handy back then. The North Maintenance Alder, you could look at this, the Strait of Juan de Fuca out there. And on one side was this ditch that led down to basically a little ways off, and there's the cliff down to the salt water. Not good. And the other side was a smaller cliff on the middle of this that led down to the kind of where the water that was coming, like certain times of year, the rain would just go right straight down the road and then kind of wash down into this little gully thing on the other side. So the gravel wasn't exactly great. So while this thing was over revving, and by the way, this is what really ticked me off. By the time I got back to the highway, it would usually be fine. It'd be absolutely fine. It'd be like, okay, now I run like crap again. It'd be like doing a death charge. You're like down there and you're kind of hitting the brakes, and then you get to that sweet spot where you're about halfway down. You're about to go in the uphill, and you just let go, and you just like power up the hill, and you're like, yeah, not dead. It's like, it's looking at the future, and it sees the way all its kids are becoming weak and more European, and he's like, I'm going to die my way. And I'm like, God damn it, truck, not today. But I got a lot of wood with that truck. And it was, I think it had a 318 in it, if I remember right. I'm not sure. But I had a lot of fun with that truck. And I got my first 6 or 12 cord with that truck until I upgraded to the taco van. That's a whole separate story. Or the bear van, as I called it. But, yeah, I had firewood. I had heat. I had a lot of it. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing good. Had a pickup truck, get some beer. Had my dog, and I was doing things my way, and it was good. So that's the Search for Fire story. And that, there's some other stories about places I was cutting wood out there, when wood cutting would happen, but I'll save those for another time. This is Freedom Phil. Y'all take it easy, and hey, this is my weird life. I'm talking about the old era, what I call the Lady Moon Project right now. And I'll probably cover a story on why exactly I call it that. But, hey, keep it weird. Enjoy your life. Take it easy.